Traditionally, Malawi is vulnerable to natural disasters such as floods and drought, which have greatly impacted on the country's economic development. Such was the case with the 2014-2015 floods, which caused loss of lives, damage to people's property, public infrastructure, and disruption of food production, all of which tend to reverse a country's economic gains. In its October 2015 assessment, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, described the $150 million Extended Credit Facility, ECF program with the country as off track following the floods which negatively affected the economy and projected a decline of 3% economic growth for Malawi. Through the $80 million Malawi Floods Emergency Recovery Project, MFERP, the World Bank is helping restore livelihoods of the floods-affected areas by rebuilding critical public infrastructure to disaster-resilient standards. Expected to run for 4 years, the project seeks to provide interventions aimed at helping the flood victims regain their status through the provision of both inputs and cash for work for agricultural productivity. Beneficiaries with access to irrigation water participated in the Input for Asset scheme and received 5 kilograms of early maturing maize seed, 25 kilograms of NPK, and 25 kilograms of urea fertilizer. Some of the 15 flood-affected districts are Nsanje, Chikwawa, Tiolo, Mulanje, Palombe, Ncheu, Rumpi, and Karonga. The agriculture sector was heavily affected as crops were washed away, irrigation schemes destroyed, leaving people food insecure. According to District Agriculture Development Office in Chikwawa alone, 9,901 hectares of crops got washed away, affecting about 44,000 households. Duncan Magwira gives a picture of how the MFERP initiative has transformed people's lives.
Indeed, with this project, there have been a number of interventions. Just to mention some of those, like the provision of farm inputs to the households. What we are doing within the project is that households are being given some work to do in their fields and some other localities whereby they are being given some inputs like about 25 kgs of fertilizer, NPK, and also urea, and they are also being given 5 kgs of seed. These inputs are those that cannot be easily accessed by these farmers simply because they have no money or resources to access or to use to access in purchasing these inputs on their own. But on the other hand, the project has also helped us much in rehabilitation of the damaged structures, mainly in the irrigation schemes. We are talking of weir rehabilitations, and we are also talking of structures like canals and also some pipes which were damaged during the time we had those floods in 2014-2015.
What are some of the unique elements of the project, and what expertise is the Agriculture Office giving to communities to overcome the disaster?
In the first place, we are saying through the project we are rehabilitating the irrigation structures, and these irrigation structures that we are now coming up with are very strong enough so that they can withstand the pressure that can be there as a result of those floods. And we have also advised our farmers, simply because they have got that experience of what they went through during that time. These farmers, they have been advised not to grow their crops very close to the river banks, so that we are encouraging our farmers to make sure that they observe the riverbank protection, so that cultivation should not be done along the rivers. And we are also advising our farmers to plant some trees, what we call agroforestry trees, along the riverbanks, so that we try to restore the environment that has been degraded mainly along these water sources. And we are also encouraging our farmers through the project to do the catchment conservation, whereby they are planting trees to the watershed in the watersheds, so that still we need to have water available from the water sources. because we know for sure that once we have trees grown in those catchments, then we'll be having continued supply of water to assist us in the irrigation activities, as is the case mostly.
The washing away of the original concrete bridge on this location negatively affected people from both Palombe and Zomba districts. For a long time, people around these two areas suffered due to limited access to essential services like hospitals, especially during rainy season, because they had to pay boat owners to connect Mwanga and Chitekesa areas. Distribution of relief items was equally affected, according to MFERP's project coordinator for the roads component, Samuel Kadangwe. The story is now different, as construction of the more than 72-meter Bailey Bridge has made life easy for communities since they now have a free crossing point. But just how different is this bridge from the previous ones? Kadangwe, who is also acting director for construction at Roads Authority, provides more insight.
The previous bridge, as I said, that by looking at it, because it was not originally designed by the Roads Authority, I could say that it was not properly founded. It was just on sand, and so it was more or less like already floating. So when the flood water came, it just washed away everything. But in this case, we did a proper design, a proper analysis. We calculated the amount of water which is carried on this river, and how much and at what height we can construct, or we can properly construct the bridge without it being affected by any running water. So after doing that, you can see that over and above that, this bridge is able to carry more tonnage than the previous bridge. And it has already been witnessed that all the relief food which is being carried by the World Food Program to their distribution centers, they have now started using this bridge, which is able to carry over tonnage over load over 30 tons. So this is a very strong bridge, and we have all the hope that it will last forever as compared to the previous bridge. What we need to do, because it has got timber decking, we need to periodically come and replace the timber decking, because with time and loading, the timber tends to wear off. So that will be the only thing which will be carried out on this bridge. And over and above that, we've already had the community worrying about the stability of the slopes, the river banks, and we are coming up with another project where we're going to do proper protection works on the river banks, just to make sure that no matter what kind of floods will come, they will not affect our structure which we have just built. And also, we have also been discussing with the community that we have noticed that they have started mining sand just close to the river channel, and that normally affects our foundations, because they can lead to scouring. And we are asking the community that if they want to mine sand, they should do it further away from the bridge. So with those measures, we think that our structure should be able to survive whatever conditions can come on the bridge. We are very much assured of that.
He also speaks on the technical expertise which was considered before construction works on the bridge commenced.
Like for this bridge, before we constructed it, we had to bring in a team of consultants who carried out investigations, including drilling on the positions where I wanted to put in the apartments and the pier. And we had to find we wanted to put this bridge on a very solid foundation. And for this case, like the pier, which you see, the concrete pier which you see there, the solid ground, we found it at 6 meters deep. So we had to excavate 6 meters down and started constructing our foundations from that depth, coming upwards. And also you could see that we reduced the number of spans for the bridge, because what we noticed is that most of the washaways were happening because there were just too many spans from the original design which was done, I think, under MASAF. I think there were about 10, if not 11 spans for the bridge. So these were not adequate to carry water and all the floating stones and the tree trunks. That's why the bridge was washed away. So our proposal is that just have one middle span and have enough opening, and also raise the bridge up so that it can accommodate as much water and as much floating debris as we can. So that's what we did on this bridge, and we hope that the solution which we propose on this bridge should be able to withstand any flood which will come, or whatever debris it will be carried by this river.
He is hopeful the community will be responsible enough in protecting the structure from vandals so that it is worth the investment and future generations benefit from it. Under this component, the project has constructed several other bridges and feeder roads that were devastated by the 2015 floods. According to the implementing unit MFERP, a post-disaster needs assessment established that about $495 million was needed for the recovery activities, but only $80 million was approved for this project. Acknowledging existing safety nets programs such as the social cash transfer and public works, MFERP's project coordinator Dixie Kampani clarifies that the difference lies in the strategies. Kampani explains that cash transfer program focused on the transferring cash, while the current project focuses on rebuilding and restoring systems affected by floods. He further states that the input for asset program is intended to assist people by supporting their productive system through provision of hybrid seeds and fertilizers for them to work to get inputs instead of cash. So far, the targeted sectors such as agriculture, education, health, water resources and roads are doing well according to Kampani.
It's been good. Most of the sectors are doing well. We visited education, and I think the structures that they've come up with are very good, except that I think what we need is complementarity between sectors. But the structures, as you can see behind me, is one of those structures that we think they're going to stand.
During a recent World Bank implementation support mission tour to some of the flood-hit areas in the southern region, it was revealed that delayed procurement processes is affecting rollout of the program. Kampani gives an assurance that as the program implementation unit, it will improve on this through skills development.
We would like to see if we can improve procurement processes in the districts. As for the sectors, there's no problem, but for the districts, we would like to improve procurement in terms of giving them skills, undertaking capacity development among the people that are involved in procurement. So hopefully that is going to help. Some of the challenges actually include maybe just general delays in actual works. And in some cases, for example, some of these huge infrastructure, capacity of the contractors to complete the work. I think those are challenges because some of these sub-projects should have been finished by now. But because of either capacity or maybe skills amongst the contractors, delayed some of the implementation.
Government, through the Department of Disaster Management Affairs, is taking a lead in the development of a multi-sectoral framework on recovery interventions. A post-disaster needs assessment conducted by the department with assistance from MFERP indicated extensive infrastructural damage to roads, bridges and schools following the flooding. Director of Disaster Response and Recovery speaks on how the World Bank funding has impacted on the affected communities.
After the post-disaster needs assessment, we did the National Recovery Framework, where disaster management with also funding from the World Bank, we came up with a study of how much it will cost to do some of the reconstruction. After disasters, we need to do a recovery. And then we, from the disaster framework, World Bank funded us with $80 million. And from that, this is one of the results, where one of the components is for rehabilitation of infrastructure. And Chitekesa is one of the beneficiaries. I'm very happy to know that this bridge has been completed, and the people here who were affected by the disaster, now they can use this bridge and continue with their lives.
Chidiawonga explains that government is happy that the interventions have helped in restoring livelihoods and in preventing future disasters. She adds that overall community involvement in the project is quite encouraging.
The communities themselves, they have been involved with repairing of small-scale irrigation, roads, different infrastructures, even water resources, which were damaged by the floods. And by carrying out these labor-intensive repairs, the communities themselves were benefiting. Some were getting input for many assets for agriculture, fertilizer and seeds, and others cash, so that they can restore their livelihood. So that's what we need in disaster risk management, that after a disaster has happened, there should be ways and means of restoring these people to where they were. And the other programs that are also being done under MFERP, disaster resilience programs, where they are being encouraged to plant trees, to put in contrabands where they can protect themselves. There are other major works which cannot be done by the communities themselves, so we've hired contractors like major irrigation works, which are also being carried out in other parts of the country. And bridge works as well. These are done by Roads Authority. They cannot be. They have to be done professionally. So this is really having a major impact of restoring livelihood, but as well as prevention of any disasters. Because after disasters like this, there are lessons learned. Apart from the bridge, we have to look at the rivers themselves. So in disaster risk management, we are also involved in disaster resilience, in sensitizing these communities that they should protect the river banks if there is need to be, put in trees, and just to prevent, maybe, as you can see here, the soil is really being washed away.
A World Bank Supervision Implementation Support Mission from Washington recently visited some of the districts where projects are being implemented in Mangochi, Chikwawa, Palombe and Machinga. The program has an underlining theme of building back better and smarter structures for improved resilience to help people get back to normalcy. A leader of the delegation notes that adapting to climate change has to be done in a sustainable manner, using mechanisms aimed at preventing future occurrences. MFERP Task Team Leader Ayaz Parves says the team is impressed with people's efforts in helping themselves recover from the devastating effects of the 2015 disaster.
We have seen a lot of good progress being made. We have seen the enthusiasm of the project implementation unit, of the district officers, but most of all of the communities to help themselves in recovering from this devastating disaster. We are extremely impressed. We are with the communities in their effort to recover fully in terms of their livelihoods, in terms of their lives, in terms of their infrastructure and service delivery, in all respects that we can help. And so we have seen a lot of good progress being made in this during this implementation support mission. Of course, we still have a long distance to travel. There are many issues that still remain to be addressed, and there are many issues of process, there are many issues of improving quality, of improving speed and efficiency that will be progressively solved.
He nonetheless explains that issues such as improving quality, speed and efficiency needed to be addressed to overcome some of the procurement challenges experienced. According to Parves, the Input for Asset program, which has various circles, needs to be increased in order to deepen its impact.
We have this Input for Assets program, and which has various cycles. We are currently, I think, in the third cycle of the IFA program, and we are trying to now see how we can further deepen and widen the impact of IFA, which means, and the project steering committee, which is headed by the Secretary Treasury, has also agreed that we need to do a balance between expanding the impact to more communities, but at the same time we have the challenge of trying to deepen and consolidate what has been achieved in the existing IFA program. So it's a challenge of how much we reach out to other communities versus how much we try to consolidate and make more sustainable improvements to the lives and livelihoods of people. So it's a challenge all the way. But having said so, new components, while we cannot add new components to the project, within the components we are extending both outreach, we are improving quality, and we are introducing new ways of, based on the lessons learned from the 2 cycles of IFA and what we have learned from the infrastructure, we're trying to improve various aspects of the project.
He observes that some key elements of water and sanitation were overlooked during planning stage and should be included in the course of constructing some school structures.
Unfortunately, the needs that were identified were, I think, close to $400 million at the time that we did the post-disaster needs assessment. And our project is the only substantial contribution other than some government-owned projects. But so far, to my knowledge, there are not many other projects that are doing similar interventions, which really means that, because our philosophy is that the emergency period of the project is not just 1 year. So this is a 4-year project, and it takes 3-4 years for the people to fully recover, and we want to be with them during all the 4 years. Unfortunately, we are the only project which is looking at this 4-year time horizon, and so that also means that we are limited in what we can do. So water and sanitation, sorry for my long-winded answer, but the short answer is that we did not have enough money to do water and sanitation everywhere, But now, having seen the burning need, and we always had insisted that the key elements of water and sanitation be put into the design of the schools. But what we have witnessed so far in the 3 or 4 schools is that not enough attention is being paid to that dimension. So we have agreed with the project implementation unit and with the education department, and they have both gradually agreed to add a water and sanitation emphasis in the project, and to see how we can improve existing water and sanitation facilities, and where there is possibility to add more facilities within the project budget, or try to see if we can use savings from within the project to be directed towards this extremely important element.
The team winds up the tour with an announcement that on November 9, the World Bank Board approved $174 million to help those facing food shortages and other drought-induced challenges to recover and build resilience against future shocks. The funding will be provided through 2 projects, the Malawi Drought Recovery and Resilience Project, with grant of $104 million. The second support is through the Strengthening Safety Net Systems Project, Malawi Social Action Fund, MASSA 4, with a grant of $48 million and a credit of $22 million.
On the climate change and the broader weather patterns that Malawi is witnessing, we are also coming up with a new project which has been approved by the Bank Board on November 9th, which is called the Malawi Drought Recovery and Resilience Project, where we are trying to look at this as an integrated package, because what Malawi is faced with is not just droughts or not just floods, but a vicious cycle of droughts and floods. And so we are trying to support the government in coming out of, and the people particularly, in breaking away from this cycle and to do it in an integrated manner. So you'll see that the new project that we are coming up will be using more or less the same implementation mechanism, and try to consolidate the gains in this project to build and bring more outcomes related to resilience. For example, one of the key elements of climate change that is being addressed is climate smart irrigation, climate smart agriculture, that is being introduced in this new project that is called the MDRRP, which will become effective soon.
The team is happy that although the project has some challenges, it is actually on course working and is one of the few projects in Malawi which is disbursing ahead of schedule.